Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the debate between Marcy Mostello and Sam Doctor. They are campaigning to replace Representative Brian Ellis for the remainder of his seat. Our program will run as follows. We will have introductions, followed by a series of questions which will be one candidate will be given a question and 2 minutes to answer it. The opponent will be given 1 minute then to rebut that answer. Then we'll rotate it through back and forth until we have exhausted them both. Housekeeping. We do have the program tonight being televised by Armstrong. We thank them, and we owe them the courtesy of no one else videotaping during this program. If you do videotape, you will be asked to turn it off. If you do not do that, then someone will escort you out. So I would appreciate that you follow those instructions. I also want to thank the radio station, Butler Radio Network, for broadcasting this live this evening as well. My name is Ron Vodenecker, and I am the publisher of the Butler Eagle. It has been my privilege to be doing this for the past, I don't know how many years, but it is truly a privilege to try to help the community with getting the opportunity to know your candidates. I think that we have learned even more than ever with recent things that have taken place, how important it is to have candidates that we can count on to represent us and to truly be the spokespeople for Butler County. So at this time, I would like to invite Marcy to introduce herself.
Thank you, Ron. Thank you all for coming. I am Marcy Mostello, and I want to be your next state representative for Pennsylvania's 11th District. I'm a lifelong resident of Butler Township and the best person for this job because I've been working in Butler County for over 30 years, and I know what's important to us. For the past 22 years, I've been solving problems for both people and local governments, most recently with Congressman Mike Kelly. In addition to running a busy legislative office, I served as the Congressman's liaison to the business community, local governments, nonprofits, and labor organizations. This knowledge, experience, and commitment to our community makes me the right person for this office. We don't need more government. We need a government that works better. I will put the people of Butler County first, no matter who you are, business owner, employee, union member, retiree, student, everyone is important. My job is to listen and represent you. A top priority for me is to advocate for grant opportunities for this district, Butler City, our townships, and our boroughs. We deserve to get back our fair share of our tax dollars. I will bring state, local, and federal groups together to create an environment for jobs, business development, and to improve the roads and infrastructure to support it. I fully support the Second Amendment, and I am pro-life. We need to address the opioid crisis by empowering our local law enforcement, by putting bad guys and drug dealers in jail, while also making sure addicts have the right resources to heal. And of course, we need to reform the property tax system to make sure our senior citizens are not being taxed out of their homes. Ron, thank you, and the Butler Eagle. Thank you to the Chamber of Commerce, the radio station, and for BC3 for hosting this event.
Thank you. Sam.
Hi, everybody. Growing up in my house, the kitchen table conversations that we had weren't about rubbing elbows with congresspeople. They were about contract negotiations, about the work conditions that my parents had at their jobs. I'm a third-generation steel worker. I'm the husband of a union nurse, and I'm a father. Above all, I'm a regular working person. And I think that's what we need in this community. We need someone to represent us who understands the perspective of regular people, right? Harrisburg is broken, and DC is even worse. Our representatives lack integrity. They serve their own interests instead of the interests of their constituents. Our legislation is written largely by special interest groups and not by the people that we elect to represent us. The social contract is like a marriage, right? if you don't work on it, it fails. And I think that everybody can understand it's failing right now. We need to restore the civil friendship that is supposed to exist in our government between regular people. I'm running because we need a bipartisan voice to do that. I'm not just going to represent Republicans, not just Democrats, but I want to represent this community as a whole. Because even though I do believe that a high tide lifts all boats, we've been moored to a rotten dock in this town for a long time. I look forward to answering any questions that you might have, and I look forward to continuing the very productive dialogue that we've been having with thousands of people in our community. If you want a remedy for the disease that's plaguing our political system, then put a doctor in the house, folks.
All right, thank you very much. And before we go further, I do want to say thank you to Community College. Nick and his people have always been very gracious in hosting this and always do a first-class job for us, and I do appreciate it. Okay, our first question will go to Marcy, and here it is. Would you vote to reduce the size of the State House? What if it meant losing your job? A bill last year was estimated by the House Appropriations Committee to save between $10 and $15 million a year by axing. How do you feel?
Well, the one thing that I don't want to do is lose representation in the rural areas. We can't lose our voice in Harrisburg. If you're talking about reducing the number of representatives, or are you talking about the costs associated with running the General Assembly? I'm all about reducing costs. I just don't want to lose our voice here in the rural areas to Philadelphia or Pittsburgh.
Thank you.
No, Marcy's absolutely right. This problem that we're having with the budget, we've got sometimes, depending on the projection, a $1 to $3 billion structural deficit in this Commonwealth, and $15 million a year. If you're going to dilute your franchise, the power of your vote, you better be getting a lot more than $15 million a year for it, folks. We don't need less representation, we need better representation. That's something that I think we have an obvious point of agreement on.
Very good. All right, Sam, your first question. What should the state legislature be doing about dramatically outdated tax assessments like the 1969 assessments that Butler County uses? Should counties be forced to reassess? If not, why? If so, what money should pay for it? And of course, in the news today, the Clearview Mall was reassessed. The Butler School District will lose a lot of money there. So that's an example of what's to come, but that's just on the commercial side. We get into the true real estate market and individual homes, we have a bigger situation.
Sure.
What's your reply?
Well, first of all, I believe that we need to move towards eliminating property taxes as a way of collecting revenue in the Commonwealth. This is something that's extremely popular, and I think it's a good idea. That property taxes don't provide an equitable way of funding education in the first place, right? If you live in an area where the property values are very high, you're going to be charged a much lower millage on your property, and they'll get the same amount of money. Whereas if you live in a very poor area, they have to tax you relatively heavier to get the same amount of funding for students. Pennsylvania is one of the lowest states in our nation when it comes to the percentage of education funding that comes from the state level. And that's something that needs to be fixed, not just because we're having issues with property taxes, but because this is something that affects everybody in the Commonwealth. It's not just incumbent on local people to ensure that children in this state get a good education. That's a goal that we all should share, and it's the best investment that we can possibly make with our tax dollars is education. That's all I have. So.
Very good, thank you. Okay, Marcy, back to you. There's a bill in the House right now calling for a plastic bag fee to reduce waste and litter. What's your take or your stance?
May I respond to the assessment? Or Am I allowed a minute on that or not?
Yeah, you
You
are.
know what? We're doing just fine, so if you'd like to comment, fine.
Are you sure? Okay.
Yep.
No, I didn't know if it went 2 minutes.
Go
or
ahead.
one. I'm
Go
so
ahead.
sorry.
Go ahead.
As far as tax assessments, the cost associated with those is very high. So we need to find out if that cost is actually going to balance out with what's going to be increased, what's going to be decreased, because I don't know if the counties can afford it right now. So that's where I am with the tax assessment.
I believe they are forcing Beaver County as we speak. So, it's going to happen at some point in time. The big question is how is it going to get paid for?
And it's where, the next representative has to work with the counties to see what's best for them.
Okay. All right, back to the
I
question.
apologize.
There's a bill in the House right now. Were you trying to get away from that question?
I was.
There's a bill in the House right now calling for a plastic bag fee to reduce waste and litter. What's your take or your stance?
I'm not familiar with that exact piece of legislation. I don't know, it's always nice to not have litter when you see it everywhere, all over the highways and byways of America. I really am not familiar with that piece of legislation right now, but I would look into it a little bit further.
Sam?
Okay, so a plastic bag fee directly affects manufacturing in Pennsylvania, right? There are at least 2 major manufacturers of plastic bags that are in the Commonwealth. They're not in this district, but as everybody knows, the way economics works is if you throw a rock into a pond, the ripples go out, and the velocity of money works the same way, right? If we shrink manufacturing on the eastern side of the state, we're going to suffer on the western side of the state too. These are good middle class jobs. People should be making the choice to be better stewards of the environment, but we don't need to punish manufacturing to get there. So.
Okay. All right, Sam. Oh, excuse me, Marcy, we're back to you. No, that was your rebuttal, right? So it's your
Yeah.
question. Excuse me, I
It's okay.
apologize. Okay, we have a steel question. Generally speaking, things are good for steel right now. What is the legislature's responsibility to help that industry when things aren't going well?
Well, I think that, first of all, I take issue with the statement that things are good for steel right now. I think it depends on who you ask. 2 or 3 years ago, Chinese companies were, selling carbon steel for less price per ton than cabbages, right? How are our companies supposed to compete with that? That's more of a federal question. That's something that you could direct to Mike Kelly. But as far as what local people can do to help steel workers, you can continue to strengthen collective bargaining, first of all, because this is something that people often get wrong, that the union is out to get more and more money. We're out to make a good product. We want to have a good relationship with our employer. And sometimes the people on the floor know more than the people at the top when it comes to figuring out how to be profitable. So as far as, taking care of the steel industry, first of all, we have to make sure that we protect collective bargaining. Second of all, we need to make sure that we don't create overbearing environmental regulations that are going to smother that industry, where it's actually, in some places, like you said, growing, depending on where you are. So.
I have to say, I agree that people on the floor, my employees have been telling me that for 40 years, that they know more than I do, and they have finally convinced me. Okay. Marcy, rebuttal?
Yes. No, it's good to see. I just heard this afternoon that U.S. Steel is reinvesting, I don't know how many billions of dollars into a couple plants down in Pittsburgh. So
Yeah.
It's good to see the reinvestment going on. Locally, if you want to talk about steel, Armco, AK Steel, I still call it Armco, unfortunately. A lot of my family members work down there. And I think it's a reinvestment back in that community. And what AK does down there is such a highly specialized steel that we as a nation cannot lose what they do. So I always look forward to the reinvestment back into our communities and back into the businesses that still remain here.
Okay. All right. So now we're back to Marcy. What should Pennsylvania's roadmap for getting away from the opioid crisis look like? What's your vision for the state in that regard?
What my vision for the state is for the opioid crisis, we need to, as I said in my opening statement, we need to empower law enforcement. We need to make sure these bad guys are put away. The other thing, sadly, we need to stop the demand of this drug. The supply is always going to be there. We just need to stop the demand, whether it's educating children at a younger age, educating older adults, and just making them aware of how bad this drug is. But it's really empowering law enforcement to do the right thing and put these guys away.
Sam?
Well, I think we need to start holding the people that are responsible accountable, first of all. The pharmaceutical industry. This state's going to sue the pharmaceutical industry, and they're going to pay for what's happened to our people, right? Not only that, but we just have to talk about it. When we legalized medical marijuana in this state, opioid prescriptions dropped significantly. That's because not only is this a safer drug, right, but it manages pain just as well as opioids do. So allowing people to have safe alternatives. There's another compound that's under attack at the state legislative level right now, and that's kratom. That people use this for pain relief and to get off of opioids, and keeping marijuana legal and expanding that, and keeping things like kratom legal, which provide a non-damaging alternative, are important to me. The reason I don't have a relationship with my biological father is because of his heroin addiction that he's struggled with his whole entire life. So this issue hits me as hard as it does anyone in this room, and I want to make progress here.
Okay. Okay, Sam, where do you? How do you think property owners with pipelines on their land are being treated by natural gas companies right now? Are there legislative adjustments that you would like to see made?
No, I mean, it depends on who you ask, of course. There's a contingent of people in this district that they want fracking banned. They want natural gas out of the state. And they won't accept any kind of incremental change, no matter how sane it might be, or no matter how insane it might be. They just want what they want, and they want it to stop now. The truth is that natural gas, especially once this cracker plant opens east of us here, is going to be it's going to continue being a huge economic boom for this area. And can we do more to help landowners with, setback limits and things like that for pipelines? Absolutely, absolutely. But we can't, we can't tax this industry out of the state, and we have to accept that, even if you don't like natural gas, it's still better in many cases than, some of the older fossil fuel industry ways of generating electricity. So,
Hey, guys, we're not ignoring you. We can't see you. I don't think they've been going over anyway, but can you guys see them any better than I can?
I can,
You
yeah.
can?
I mean, I might have ignored them once or twice, but
Okay. Okay. Marcy, your reply to would you like the question again?
If you don't mind.
Okay. How do you think property owners with pipelines on their land are being treated by natural gas companies right now? Are there legislative adjustments you would like to see made?
Actually, yes. I was up in Shakur over the weekend, and I talked to a few landowners, some of whom have signed contracts that they're not being properly reimbursed for what they had originally signed for. So there's some things that do need addressed with this, with the landowners. And you've got land that's been sitting vacant, under another name, another family, and we need to look at that also to make sure it gets deeded properly. But it depends on who you talk to is right. I mean, some of them are being treated well, others aren't. So it all depends on who you talk to.
I'll ask. Right, I'd like a follow-up question, just as direct as you can. How do you feel on a fracking tax?
you're talking about the tax that Governor Wolf has proposed.
Yes.
Okay. So we have a tax right now. It's called impact fees. Basically, the gas that gets pulled out of the ground goes into the coffers of our local municipalities. The severance tax would take money that goes to Butler County, which is actually affected by fracking, and it'll give it to Bucks County. I don't think so. But if our community is going to invest in fracking, we shouldn't have to give up part of the revenue that is generated by it to a county that has banned it. It just doesn't make sense to me. Not only that, but impact fees are going to take care of infrastructure concerns that have been created by the fracking industry. And every municipal authority you talk to says, we don't want to get rid of them. We don't want the severance tax. We want impact fees. So,
Okay. Marcy?
I am opposed to the severance tax policy. We already have an impact fee that's doing just well here in Butler County. So I would be opposed to any other sort of tax on an industry that is continuing to grow.
Okay, thank you. Okay, I believe we're back to you, Marcy. All right. Geographically speaking, most of Pennsylvania's counties have shrinking populations. The latest census estimates suggest that Butler County is bucking that trend, and we can thank Cranberry Township and Adams Township for that. But even within the county, that is likely not universal. And this district in particular is going to continue to have problems. This is a nationwide problem in rural areas. How does all of Butler County and other parts of rural PA stop losing people?
Well, we need to think of it as a region. We need to be more attractive to businesses to move here. We are sitting in one of the finest establishments here in BC3 with the workforce that they produce, what they do for their students. We've got Butler County Votech doing the same thing. We need to attract more businesses to come into these rural areas, and I think the energy industry has done that. But we need to start attracting more to keep these workers here, to stay here, locate here, and hire here. That's what we need to do, and I think that's what we need to attract.
I think we need to start listening to economists, folks. We need to decrease the corporate tax rate in Pennsylvania, first of all, to make us more competitive and relative to our neighbors. And we need to broaden the tax base. Right now, 75% of revenues for the general fund come from just two sources. That's sales and income tax. Those both rely on the assumption that our population is going to stay relatively stable. So we need to start making investments to keep young people here. I don't know how you feel about this, but I think that we need to start making an investment towards pre-K, universal pre-K in our Commonwealth. And there's a number of different ways that we can do that. But that's my rebuttal. Sure.
Okay. All right, Sam. I'm a product of a very large family. I'm one of 12 kids, and every one of my brothers or my brother-in-laws served in a volunteer fire department. How that never happened to me, I don't know, but it didn't. And now I see the stories that volunteer fire departments are struggling to maintain staffing. I witnessed my brothers and my brothers-in-law and my father jumping up from tables and running out to get on a fire truck and go risk their lives for someone else as a volunteer. All right? What can we do? How can we attract more people, and whose responsibility is that? Where does that begin?
Well, I think that it begins when our legislators cooperate with local and municipal governments. A lot of people don't know this. Our county government has to hire a lobbyist to go to Harrisburg to advocate on behalf of the county. Same thing with Cranberry Township. That's insane. Our guys don't do their jobs. They don't communicate with the people back home, and this is why there isn't movement on this issue at the state level. We have a very serious problem with, like Ron's saying, the number of people who are volunteering to take care of fire service, EMS, things like that. And there's a number of different bills that address that problem. Something that I'd like to do is form a council of people who are involved. People like Kevin Boozle, my friend Cody Craig, who I work with down at the mill, who's the fire chief in Shakora, and really actually give these people who know what volunteer firefighters need an opportunity to help write legislation that will help them.
Rebuttal?
As someone who had a house fire and lost everything on September 1st, 2012, I have a great appreciation for the volunteer fire department, especially those who fought the fire at my house in Butler Township. The first thing I would do is really talk to the fire departments, the volunteer fire departments, to find out what they're doing, what they're not doing to attract new members. It's really all about finding out what they're hearing on the ground. It's not about me telling them what to do, but it's really about listening to their needs, what they need, what they want to see happen. You've got other departments like Herman Volunteer Fire Department. They have a great number of people. They're just outgrowing what they have. So really, it's a listening opportunity to listen to the volunteer fire departments and actually see what they need and how to attract new members.
Follow-up question, should there be a tax incentive for individuals to volunteer in fire departments?
I don't see why not. It makes perfect sense to me. These people do a service for us. They get very little out of it. I think that we ought to give back.
Marcy?
Yes, I think it would be good to see a tax incentive for these folks who go out and keep us safe.
Okay. Marcy, I believe. How do you feel organized labor is faring in Pennsylvania today? Are there protections or limitations you'd like to see put in place?
Really, without talking to all the labor organizations and all the members, I really can't answer what exactly their needs are and what their wants are. But I'm always open to talking to them. That's what I've been doing for the past 22 years, is from Erie County down to Butler County, just talking to labor leaders, finding out what they need, what they want for their business.
Okay, so if you want to find out what people involved in labor want or need, you should go talk to them. That's what I've been doing. That's what our representatives have neglected to do, okay? I know from the experience of our officers, when they came to visit Mike Kelly in D.C., that we are not treated with friendship and openness when it comes to asking for what we need. It's the truth, folks. We're not.
Please?
We'll talk later, Mike.
No? No? Okay.
I've been
Okay.
there. Oh my
okay.
goodness.
Okay. This is my show. Thank you. Okay. Who had that question first?
I believe
You
I had
did.
it first.
I just replied to it.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
And don't you support paycheck protection?
This one's the moderator. I'm sorry. I'm going to listen to Ron.
Don't you support paycheck protection?
We can
Ron's the moderator.
we can go back and forth with this.
It's his show.
Okay. All right. Okay. So we're to you, Sam. How do you think medical marijuana is going in Pennsylvania? You touched on it earlier. How do you feel about recreational legalization?
I think that medical marijuana is going great in Pennsylvania, and I think the rest of the Commonwealth thinks that too. John Fetterman, our lieutenant governor, just finished going on a tour to every single county in Pennsylvania and asking people to share their thoughts on this issue. And the governor also accepted online submissions asking people to share their thoughts. 60 to 80%, depending on how you count it, favor legalizing marijuana in Pennsylvania. And I went to the meeting at the county in Slippery Rock, okay, in Butler County. It was the same story there. There are people with concerns, and I think that those people deserve to be heard. That there's a right way and a wrong way to do this. But, when I asked Ted Nesbitt this question about 5 years ago, he told me that it was his opinion and the opinion of a lot of his colleagues that legalization of marijuana is inevitable in Pennsylvania. I think that's probably true at this point, based on what we know about whether or not this drug is actually dangerous, whether or not this drug is actually a gateway towards using harder substances. It's not. This is an economic opportunity, and it's an opportunity to focus the resources of our law enforcement on fighting the opioid epidemic, not on policing people for carrying a small amount of marijuana. 55 people every day in the Commonwealth are arrested for carrying a small amount of marijuana. These people are otherwise law-abiding and gainfully employed citizens.
Marcy?
I do not think we should make recreational marijuana legal in the state. We're fighting an opioid crisis right now, and we're fighting an opioid crisis right now that we can't even get a handle on. And I really don't think now is the time to introduce another drug into our society.
It's already there. It's not reintroducing it. It's there. It's there. Okay. And the war on drugs hasn't stopped it, right? But we're giving a tax break to black market drug trade right now. That's what we're doing. All that trade gets done tax-free. And it could be helping to fund education in Pennsylvania. It could be helping to reduce the deficit in this state.
Thank you. Okay. Let's see. We're back to Marcy. State law currently requires disclosure of gifts over $250 and of any hospitality gifts over $650. Should less valuable gifts have to be disclosed, and where should the line be?
I don't really know where the line should be, but I know in my job currently, we're not allowed to accept anything at all under or over $50. So I'm sure there's a happy medium in there somewhere. I think everything should be disclosed. If you get something from a lobbyist, you need to disclose it.
State legislators should not be permitted to accept gifts from lobbyists, folks. They shouldn't be permitted to do it. They work for you, not for, some outside special interest group, not for corporations. They work for you.
I'm going to come back at each of you on this.
Sure.
General practice in the work world, it certainly wouldn't be unusual for one of my salespeople to walk into a business and offer up a box of donuts to try to get in the door. All right. I'm certainly not advocating. I don't know where to draw the line, but I know there was some stink made over the county commissioners receiving lunch one day. Is that just are you opposed to absolutely everything like that because it can lead to something, or is some of that okay? And I think we were here first.
Well, it depends on what you mean by is some of it okay. You need to learn what's out there. And if it's over a hamburger somewhere, that's fine. I mean, you need to learn what's out there. If we get new voting machines, we need to see what the options are. So, if it's over a lunch, if it's over, a breakfast somewhere, you need to learn about what's going to come back into your counties.
Okay, so voting machines, these people are looking to sell us machines. They don't need to also be giving our elected officials gifts to try and sweeten the deal. We're going to be investing a lot of money to fix a problem with voting machines. But the line is between whether or not your business is accountable to the public, Ron. Like I said, you have a private enterprise, okay? Whether or not you want to go into a business and give people a box of donuts is different than whether or not you want to come into the office of my representative and try and sway his opinion when I don't have the ability to do that. I work for a living, okay? They shouldn't be allowed to receive anything of value.
Okay, guys, doing very nicely. I commend you both. Budget is certainly an issue in the state, and it's far from anything that goes on is far from bipartisan. Everything is being split down along party lines across the state, and it causes budgets not to be accomplished on time and so on. All right. What do you see the biggest problem is with the state budget, and in your very first term in office, how might you proceed to try to make progress towards bringing people together enough that something can get accomplished?
Yeah,
You're
okay.
first.
Well, the first thing I would do is look at our giant bloated system of special funds that exist in this state. Special funds are funds that get revenue, and they're not held accountable to the general fund. So the largest one in the state is the Horse Racing Development Fund. Okay, it's like $300 million. They get a significant amount of revenue that was originally supposed to go to, help you guys pay for property tax, but instead goes back into the hands of casino owners in the form of purses for horse racing. This is the kind of thing that exists in special funds in Pennsylvania. And we need to take a serious look at every single one and ask, does this spark joy? And if it doesn't, get rid of it. We need to cut, and we need to create new revenues. And every serious person who has looked at this issue will tell you that. You can't do just one. You have to do both. But there's a bunch of stuff that over there that we really just don't need, folks. And horse racing development, horse racing is incredibly lucrative. I could give any one of you people in this crowd a casino, and you could walk away from it, and it would generate money. I'm not worried about horse racing in Pennsylvania. I'm worried about, regular people who work for a living. So,
Okay. Marcy?
Well, as far as the budget, we need to look at the spending. That is so important that we focus on that, and we all have fiscal discipline in our own personal lives, that we need to bring that to Harrisburg and have some fiscal discipline out there. And really, there's, the transparency also of it all. Just to, stay in touch with the people back home, stay in touch with the people of the 11th District, the county commissioners, the municipal leaders, and just to talk to them about what they need, what they'd like to see in the budget, what they don't need anymore. So it's really all about fiscal discipline when looking at a budget.
Okay. Very good. Okay. Final question, and then we're going to go to closing statements. How would you proceed to fairly address the unfunded liability in the state pension systems and provide for the long-term solvency of those programs?
There's nothing we can do right now for current employees. The can's been kicked down the road long enough. For new employees, we need to look at a better way. There is a hybrid way out there right now that I believe was recently passed, but with new employees, that there's a contribution portion of it with the 401k system. So there's new ways to look at it with new hires with that plan. And also, healthcare costs have skyrocketed. And with that, we need to look forward to when that new hire retires. And how is healthcare costs, using the actuary numbers that are going to be out there at the time. But we need to control that a little bit more. But there's really nothing we can do about current state employees right now. But moving forward, there's a lot that can be done.
Sam?
I think you need to offer pension buyouts, first of all. I think this is what our private corporation did, okay? We have a pension and a 401k at AK Steel, but neither of them is a defined benefit plan, right? They contribute while we work, because at the end of the day, pensions are just delayed payment for work that you've already done. They contribute to both a 401k and a pension plan. And then when we retire, there is no liability for the company. That's something that we need to pursue at the state level. Instead of backloading all of the debt for later, pay for it now. Pay for it now, find ways to pay for it now, and then you also offer buyouts. That way, and people take them. I know from experience, you can save a lot of money on the existing liability that you're going to have to eventually pay for anyway. That's the responsible thing to do.
Okay. Good. Okay. Outstanding job by both of you. I'm now going to ask for your closing statements. Marcy went first at the beginning, so Sam, I'll ask you to do your closing statement first.
Sure. I just can't overstate how passionate I am about providing this community a voice, and I hope that my sort of truculence up here this evening hasn't made me seem like the kind of person that isn't willing to talk to anybody, no matter what their personal views are, no matter whether or not they disagree with me. I'm interested in your perspective, because I don't know everything, first of all. And second of all, it's incumbent on me as your representative, or I hope I'll be your representative. It'll be incumbent on me to carry out your will. At the end of the day, that's what your representative is. He's an extension of the will of his constituency. So please, I look forward to talking to you folks. Don't be afraid to come and talk to me. I know I might seem like I'm kind of tough to talk to, but what I'm like up here is it's not exactly what I'm like down there. So you gotta be tough in a debate. So thank you very much, and I look forward to it. I really do.
Marcy, your closing comments.
Thank you. Tonight you heard from both of us, and I think the differences are clear in our experience, qualifications, and visions for this community. I want to represent all of the residents of the 11th District, and I'm ready and able to do that. I've spent my entire adult life solving problems and helping people. Serving as your next state rep will allow me to use my knowledge and experience to make sure that we are heard in Harrisburg and that our needs are given priority. We are in this together. My job as your state representative is to put you first, and that is what I will do. I will listen to what you need, and I will take that back to Harrisburg. We will work together to make this government work better for us. And I would respectfully ask for your vote on May 21st. Thank you.
I think that we have a great opportunity to elect a wonderful new state representative, and I'm proud of the job that both of you did. I want to thank you very much.
Thank you.
Armstrong Comfort Solutions is now the best choice for all your heating and cooling needs. New installations or service calls, our expert technicians can provide you with the service and support you need to keep your home comfortable, no matter the season. We offer products from industry-leading brands like Carrier and Mitsubishi, and we're here for you with 24/7 local support and emergency service. Call us today at 724-789-9100 and experience the satisfaction you've come to expect from Armstrong.
Well, good evening and welcome. My name is Ron Vodnecker. I am the publisher of the Butler Eagle, and it's my privilege to be your moderator for this evening. This is the debate between the candidates for the 41st Senate seat, replacing the retired Don White. I would like to thank Armstrong for televising our program this evening, and I would ask for everyone's courtesy in that being that it is being taped professionally and being broadcast live, I would ask that no one try to video while we are doing this program. It would just be disruptive, and we ask for your courtesy in that. I'd also like to thank the Butler radio station, who is streaming the program live as well. So we are trying to reach, between the two of them and my newspaper, we are trying to reach everybody as well as we possibly can. I want to thank Butler County Community College and President Nick Newpower for hosting us this evening, as they have done for many, many years. It is such a wonderful place to be able to do this, and they are so gracious to us. And I also want to thank the magical Larry Stock. You noticed how I didn't have to scream and yell to get everybody in their seats. Larry just turns the lights off, so you either get to your seat or you fall down trying to. So thanks, Larry. Appreciate that. Welcome to our candidates. Here's how we're going to do things. We will have a 2-minute introduction for each of you. Use the 2 minutes as however you would like to. Wave to family, whatever you feel like doing. After that, we will begin the debate. Each candidate will be given 2 minutes to answer a question. Then the opposing candidate will have a 1-minute rebuttal time. Then we will switch that around, and the next question will go to the opposite person. Okay? So, if you are ready, we will begin. Joe, we'll start with your introduction, please.
Thank you. Good evening, and thank you to the Butler Community College for hosting us. I appreciate the local media outlets and the Butler Chamber of Commerce for having us this evening. I want to thank Dr. Bozer. It's a pleasure meeting you this evening. I want to congratulate you for stepping across the line and offering yourself as a candidate and for public service. I have a tremendous amount of respect for anybody, regardless of party affiliation or political point of view, who presents themselves as a candidate for public office and as an individual who's willing to serve our public, and that deserves a tremendous amount of gratitude. My wife Gina and I have grown up here in Western Pennsylvania. Our families have grown up here for multiple generations, and together we're raising our 4 children in Indiana Borough. And I want for our 4 children what I think all of you want for your family, your friends, and your neighbors, and that's an opportunity to grow and prosper and to succeed right here in Western Pennsylvania in the communities that we have come to all deeply love. I view public service as a noble profession. Public service is in my blood. These communities that make up the 41st Senatorial District have my heart. I understand their challenges. I understand their opportunities. During my time as Senator White's Chief of Staff, I've traveled to every corner of this district trying to solve real problems for real people. I've spent a lot of time in Butler County knocking on doors, particularly down in the Sarver area. I've gotten to understand the issues that people in the 41st District in Butler County hold close to their hearts, and I'm eager to serve. I'm ready to serve day one. Whoever is elected will take office in early June at the most critical time of the legislative session, and I believe I'm most prepared to represent the people of the 41st District. Thank you.
Thank you. Susan?
I also want to thank BC3 as well as the media, the outlets, in particular Butler Eagle for their choice to step forward and offer this opportunity. I think it is an important hallmark of our democracy to be able to have questions and perspectives from both sides when we have a race. I think it's how we hold our public officers accountable. I think it's how we ensure that the will of the people is actually carried forward. And so I appreciate this today. I appreciate the fact that you're here today and you're participating in it, and I welcome the chance to get to hear the areas in which we are similar and also some of the areas in which we might approach things differently. I believe that the aim, though, is ultimately the same, although the routes we may see to get there are different. I also have been living in this district, in Indiana County specifically, for nearly 20 years, had kids that attended the public school, who are now adults and working and paying taxes of their own, raising kids. And I have also worked for a number of years before that, 20 years actually, in human services in rural areas. And it afforded me the opportunity to see and understand at a deep level the ways in which poverty in particular is connected to significant social problems, issues like addiction and domestic violence and families having to be broken apart. I think that there are answers to these things, but I think it includes and must begin with economic development. I am not I'm not a politician by training. 20 years human services, 20 years nearly teaching, and in between I was a student, a PhD in policy at Cornell. But so I have skills in understanding the connection between policies and through that our laws and the conditions that people actually live in. And it's what I've been seeing in recent years that has led me to make the decision to step forward. So I want to thank you very much for the opportunity to be here tonight. Thank you. Also, before we begin, I need to say that when you hold the sign up, I can't see it. Okay? So maybe forward or something, but thank you.
All right, thanks, guys. The last two said they could see him. I know you're down there someplace, but, you know.
I have older eyes, Ron.
Okay, I understand. Okay, so good luck to both of you. Do your best. I want to point out this first question came to mind simply because in looking at the previous administrations representing the 41st District, I was astounded that 3 people have represented the district for the past 70 years. That's an amazing number, whether it be good or whether it be bad. So my question to you to begin with, Joe, is that good or is that bad? Or Having one person for 20 years, another for 30, and then a third person for 20 years, is that good representation or is that bad representation?
Well, those individuals have served at that length of time because the voters elected them. A state senate term is for 4 years. And in this case, in this special election, this term will be for essentially 18 months. And whoever is elected will go back before the voters and have an evaluation by the voters to determine whether or not they're doing the job that they expect their state senator to do in Harrisburg. So I would say that that's a reflection, and those individuals were both Democrat legislators and Republican legislators, that the voters in that district at that time believed they were representing the interests of that district. And so as far as I'm concerned, if the voters continue to elect an individual to represent them as the voters want, then that's perfectly fine.
Very good, thank you. Susan?
I also believe that the best form of term limits is elections, and I believe it's important to leave it up to the voters as well. I do have a concern, though, when I see that 97% of the incumbents in office in the state legislature are reelected every year. So the 30 years, or the number of years that you're talking about, is not unlike what's happening in other districts. And I think that that in itself does constitute a challenge. And I'm also concerned with the ways in which money might play a role in that as well. But that's something I expect we'll come back to.
Okay, thank you. Okay, next question is for you, Susan. In Middlesex Township, a lot of residential development is taking place. Route 228 is being upgraded, and the sewage plant serving the township has capacity for more development. How is the township managing current development, and is it prepared for anticipated growth?
I think that that kind of economic growth is absolutely welcome in Middlesex, as it would be in any of the areas that are outside the more direct suburban areas. So I believe that it is a sign of good things. We see the same thing actually happening down in Murraysville as well. So I think there are some supports in some ways. I also think there are some challenges. I believe that the people are certainly doing the best that they can. I am concerned, though, with regards to whether or not the road development itself for local traffic is going to be enough. The route that goes, and the number's escaping me, 228 maybe?
228?
228, that goes from 28 all the way over into Cranberry, has had lots of problems with congestion. I think that's only going to exacerbate with this. I'm also concerned about the educational development as well. Much more influx of people means schools that start to max out at capacity, and then how that actually gets funded, I think, is a question that they will need to be facing.
Okay, go.
Thank you. As I've traveled through Middlesex Township, I've been impressed with the development that is occurring there. I think your question speaks a lot to the power of local government and how they manage, or in various cases may not manage, development through zoning or other ordinances. The 228 corridor is very congested. We've had several conversations with the Butler County Commissioners and PennDOT District 10 about addressing that, and I do want to say I was impressed that Butler County was able to secure a $20 million federal grant to hopefully address some of the major congestion issues along that corridor, and I'd be very eager to continue to help addressing those problems.
Very good. Thank you. Okay, Joe, the next question is yours. Middlesex Township relies on its joint comprehensive plan adopted in 2005, which was called Vision 2020. It was a 15-year plan, and here we are. The plan includes a commercial corridor along Route 8, agricultural zones in the southwest and northwest corners, and residential neighborhoods branching into areas not zoned to preserve the township's rural aesthetic. Is it working, and how do we update that?
Well, I think in many cases, comprehensive plans, you know, the challenge with comprehensive plans is they're just that, they're a plan. They're not necessarily, as I understand them, always binding documents that strictly guide growth and development. You know, I think you truly have to look at your local elected representatives and your supervisors to understand whether or not that is working. I can tell you there are areas in our district, and Dr. Bozer mentioned Murraysville as well, that have grown. And sometimes you can see the consequences of municipalities that do not plan and prepare for development to make sure that it's done in an orderly and organized manner. Because once that toothpaste is out of the tube, so to speak, you can't get it back in.
Very good. Susan?
I think that the question of how well it's going is really a question that's best answered by the people who live in the district. And so I think that it's something that I would want to hear more about from them in terms of what they're doing. I also know that, as Mr. Pittman said, that plans are plans, and there are always going to be unanticipated consequences. And I think what's important is how they're able to adapt and take advantage of additional resources that might be secured and address the challenges that come up. And again, one of the challenges I would raise is congestion. Certainly the expansion of the corridor along 228 is going to help, but that doesn't necessarily help as much when the additional side roads and necessary side roads aren't developed as well, and that's going to take funding too. So I think there are some challenges yet to face.
Okay. All right, here comes the fun. Why do you support or oppose the anti-prohibition referendum in Middlesex Township?
The anti-prohibition referendum. I will be honest, I don't know what it is.
Well, they're trying to decide whether or not to allow the sale of alcohol in Middlesex Township. It is currently prohibited.
Interesting. In my opinion, I'm a strong believer in local government. A lot of the work I've done has been with local government over the years, and I believe that this is first and foremost an issue that is up to the people who live in Middlesex and the people who represent them. If it is their choice to have prohibition of alcohol, then I would respect that. And I don't think it's my business, quite honestly. I think it's theirs.
Okay. Joe?
Well, we've seen several municipalities throughout the 41st District tackle this very issue, and they do tackle it at the ballot box, and you do have to respect whatever decision the voters decide. But I will say, once that is passed, you have to understand and appreciate the development consequences that will occur, because obviously that opens it up to additional restaurants, hotels, things of that nature. And so I would just suggest that as the voters make that decision, they have a comfort level with their local government's ability to manage the significant changes that will occur in the municipality as a result of it.
Okay, thank you. Joe, what is your opinion on the provision in Middlesex Township that allows shale gas drilling on property in residential agricultural districts? That ordinance is being challenged in court.
So the ordinance permits drilling within...
It does currently allow for gas drilling on property in residential agricultural districts.
Okay. Well, the issue of local ordinances to regulate the drilling of natural gas has always been a very tricky one. And I think one of the biggest problems we have is a lack of uniformity when we have natural gas exploration. A lot of it has to do with the ownership of the leases, who owns those leases, how they're operated. And of course, what you also have to keep in mind, particularly whenever you're talking about the vertical drilling, is that you may have a well pad some significant different distance away from where the gas is being extracted from under the ground. And so I think you have to take a look at that as well. But I'm not going to be able to comment on that ordinance specifically.
Okay. Susan?
I do have an opinion on this. I, first of all, respect completely that resource extraction, whether it's shale gas or oil or coal, is an important part of the economy of the region. At the same time, though, I also believe that we need to respect the rights of homeowners and local districts in terms of the quality of life that they wish to have within their communities. And it has troubled me for some time that Pennsylvania has not respected the particular preferences of townships or municipalities with regards to this. I think that, I've seen it happen over in Indiana County with regards to Grant Township, which tried to stop an injection well and lost. Murraysville has recently challenged the right to drill in the municipality of Murraysville, and there were public hearings about it, and the council decided that they were going to lose too much money from the state through the lawsuit from the state. It really seems to me that the local district should work in partnership with the people, with the people at the state, and that decisions should be made that both support and protect the industry, but also support the rights of people in terms of the conditions under which they're going to be living.
All right. It's pretty much a follow-up question. We currently have an impact fee that is imposed on drilling, but many people feel there should be a severance tax as well, or in replacement of, or whatever. What is your position there?
I am strongly in support of imposing a severance tax. I believe that the impact fee as it currently stands, it helps to mitigate some of the costs associated with the impact of the drilling industry. However, honestly, it bothers me that the resource extraction is taking place, and the Pennsylvanians themselves are really not getting out of it what I think they have a right to. As an example, in Texas, they have a gas tax there, a severance tax of 7.5%, and last year, despite having a severance tax, which people say is going to depress drilling here, Texas actually found that there was an increase, a 50% increase in resource extraction of oil and gas down there. And last year alone, it brought $6.7 billion into the state revenues. I honestly do not understand why we're leaving that money laying on the table.
Joe?
Well, I mean, let's be honest. The impact fee is a tax, okay? Natural gas producers are paying a tax. They've been paying a tax since 2012. They've paid $1.4 billion of the impact tax. The issue is that those dollars largely remain locally. They don't go down to Harrisburg to get redistributed. They stay right here to address local needs. And as far as I'm concerned, the impact tax is working just fine, and the last thing I want to do is send additional dollars to Harrisburg for redistribution to other parts of the state when it can stay right here.
May I respond?
Yes, you may.
May I respond? I think that that's all well and good, but I still believe that we've got some real problems here in the state. I think that we have had significant cuts in education in particular. We have needs in the state in terms of high-speed broadband, in terms of infrastructure development. Quite a lot's needed statewide. And this is a resource of the state. And I again state that I don't believe it is prudent or makes good business sense to leave that money on the table.
Okay. All right, Joe, what would you do to help the farmers in the district?
The ag industry is undergoing some terribly significant challenges. And when you look at the ag industry as a whole, whether it's your dairy farmers or your beef farmers or any element of the ag industry, we do have to do much more to address their concerns. I will say I've run into a lot of farmers throughout the 41st District who were fortunate enough to enter into leases for the production of natural gas on their property, and it has saved their family farms, the royalties from those wells. And so I think that was significant and important and should not be forgotten. We recently eliminated the inheritance tax on the family farm, which I think was very critically important. We've made additional investments in the marketing and promotion of the dairy industry in particular. And I think one of the biggest things we did at the federal level is allow our schools to finally put whole milk and real milk back in the cafeteria. And that was long overdue. Those waivers are available, and my only wish would be that school districts would be more active in submitting those waivers.
Very good. Okay. Oh, I'm sorry.
Thank you.
Susan, please. I was forgetting we had a rebuttal.
Okay, first of all, I have noted that the leasing of the properties for resource extraction has allowed a number of the farms to survive. I was attending meetings last summer, though, with the farm bureaus in Indiana County and a couple of other counties as well. And one of the things that I learned, the Farm Bureau was reporting that many of the early leases that had been signed had been written in such a way that while farmers were getting a lot of the money right up front, after the initial flush, they began to add all kinds of deductions and fees, sort of like your Comcast bill, that started to greatly reduce what they were taking home. There were even some farmers, claimed by the Farm Bureau, that were actually paying to have the gas extracted from their property, which strikes me as insane. So I think that's something that we have to look at in terms of improving those contracts. Secondly, I also believe we have to be promoting broadband, high-speed broadband, in order to take advantage of the newer technologies. I believe we need to develop the dairy processing industry. We had so many dairy farms go under when the Dean's Milk contract was dropped for about 79 farmers through the central part of western Pennsylvania. But if we'd had a dairy industry and we had diversification of processing, then that would be possible. And finally, there's been quite a bit of talk about eliminating property taxes, and I'm assuming we'll probably come to that at some point. But one thing I want to say is that with regards to that, I am in favor of reducing significantly property taxes on family farms.
Okay. This question's not on here. I'm going to do a follow-up question.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. How do you reduce taxes on the residential aspect of a family farm only for farm people and not change the rate structure for everyone else?
I honestly believe that the rate structure has to be changed significantly. I think we have an awful lot of problems with the rate structure for income tax in this state, with the property taxes in this state, and I think we have a great deal of work to do there.
Okay, so you didn't mean just for farm families?
I believe we have to reform all of it. And for example, right now, SB 76 and HB 76 are both calling for elimination of property taxes for school districts. That would include agriculture as well as commercial and industrial. And I think that I do support that elimination for agriculture.
Okay. Anything you want to say, Joe? All right.
If this is the only property tax piece, I would like to...
There's another property tax
Okay,
question.
then
All right. Summit Academy. Can anything be done to reduce or eliminate threats of escapes and problems that are associated with Summit Academy?
That's a
Whose
difficult...
question was it? I don't recall. Whose turn am I on?
I don't remember. Actually, you asked just me the last one, so I
Okay.
presume it's...
Okay. That's a difficult question. That's a difficult issue. I think we need to sit down and have a serious conversation with all the stakeholders and try to come up with solutions and go from there.
I missed the first part of your question.
The question was what can be done to reduce or eliminate the escapes, the problems that we have associated with Summit Academy. Summit Academy is the home for wayward youth out in Herman.
Okay.
They like to be referred to as students, but they're there because they've committed crimes.
Okay, okay. That's actually something I have some personal connection to. The first part of my career, I mentioned, was in human services, and I actually spent about 10 years running a facility for adolescents. Dealing with escapes, honestly, it first begins with a close look at the facility itself. the programs that they're running, how they're operated, the nature of the youth that they're taking, the kind of supports for the youth, for the families. It is a complicated issue. It does involve stakeholders, but I think it first begins with a close look at the facility.
Okay. Back to you.
Sure.
Do you have any ideas for attracting a grocery store to serve rural areas like Saxonburg and Shakora that lost their local grocer whenever our Freedman's chain closed?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm actually one of the leaders with a project in Indiana called Local Foods, Local Places. I wrote a grant about a year and a half ago to actually the Department of Agriculture. It was a federal grant that brought a lot of stakeholders together to talk about in what ways we might work with local agricultural producers to increase access of local food to the people within in some of the more food desert places in Indiana County. And actually, we made a great deal of progress with it, and we had some very good ideas. Now, the thing is that the ideas were specific to Indiana County, and we had a large meeting of stakeholders from farmers and the county and the townships and a variety of others who were involved in agriculture and also access to foods. I think the answer, quite frankly, is not about looking to attract a large chain store from the outside, but rather providing markets for local farmers who need markets for their agriculture and making that local foods available to the people.
Joe?
Well, I think the issue speaks to a larger issue that we have in terms of our rural economy and our ability to revitalize downtowns in some cases or to encourage overall community revitalization. And so I think we could certainly offer some tax incentives. I think the LERTA program, for example, is a fairly effective program to enhance development generally within communities. I think we should look at that. I think we should look at other efforts to make the towns overall much more attractive. And I think, as Dr. Bozer said, I think she's absolutely right. We need to work to provide local markets for local produce, as well as local dairy and other ag products.
Thank you. Okay. What should the state legislature be doing about dramatically outdated tax assessments like the 1969 assessments that Butler County uses? Should counties be forced to reassess? If not, why? And if so, what money should pay for those reassessments?
Well, the best way to address the issue is just eliminate the tax. The property tax, the property tax, particularly the school property tax, is an archaic, subjective way of taxation. It doesn't belong in our form of government anymore, and I believe it should be eliminated. I have a lot of empathy for what counties go through. Indiana County recently went through a reassessment. They spent millions of dollars to come up with arbitrary reassessments at taxpayer expense. The reality is it's a glorified appraisal, and so my approach would be to eliminate the school property tax as a big way of addressing the issue.
Okay.
I'm not opposed to eliminating property tax, but SB 76 has some problems, some significant flaws that for me are a no-go. First of all, the property taxes that they're looking to eliminate are school property taxes. My understanding is that other property taxes would remain in place. In eliminating the school property taxes, those monies would get turned over and revenues would be picked up instead through sales tax and an income tax, which, actually going back to the point that you were making before, takes it from the local realm and puts it back in through Harrisburg and leaves Harrisburg to send it forward. And one of my challenges with it, first of all, is that my understanding of the bill as it's been described and written up is that it actually keeps exactly the same funding formulas that are in place right now. And I think that we have problems with gross inequities in funding in school systems As a matter of fact, in terms of equity of school funding, Pennsylvania ranks 50th out of 50 states, and this isn't going to change that. The other issue with it, though, is that it pulls the property taxes also out of the commercial and industrial. As I said before, it does it for agriculture too, but I'm fine with that. I am opposed to it coming out of commercial and industrial, and that actually leaves an awful lot of money that was being picked up. My understanding, if I'm remembering correctly, it was about $3.5 million of revenue that needs to come from another source then. And that then comes out of income tax back to people. So in essence, it's shifting tax burden to individuals and people who are already very hard pressed. So it's not a good solution as far as I'm concerned.
Okay. Recently, our county launched the Butler County Growth Collaborative, an innovative, unified approach to economic development. How can you assist this county with economic development from your seat in the Senate?
I think there's a number of things that we can do. First of all, as far as economic development is concerned, I am a passionate supporter of local development through small business specifically. I think that one of our greater challenges has been that the development that we've done heavily in the rural areas in particular has been to try to attract large corporations to put plants or facilities here and also do so through tax breaks. And I think that combined with low wages is part of a death spiral, quite frankly, for the rural areas. So I think that the better idea is to focus on local development and creation of local business. I think we do that through low-cost loans. I think we do that through providing them with access to technological support specific to emerging economies. I think that happens through the field of renewable energy. We've got a very long history as an energy producer in this state, and I think that renewable energy should be a place that we're putting a lot of attention and a lot of rural development. I also believe that we have got right down the road here in Pittsburgh some of the top engineering minds in the world through Carnegie Mellon in particular, and there's a lot of potential for developing technological industries that could be located up here if we had broadband internet that allowed us to work through online mechanisms in the rural areas. So those are some of the things I think I would start with.
Many of us are critical of our tax dollars going to support mass transit. Mm-hmm. It's not something that really touches Butler County that way. I'm sorry.
To respond?
Did I skip you?
I think you did, but that's okay. Well, is it...
Second mistake this year already.
As it relates to economic development, specifically to Butler County, I think the first objective as a state senator is to communicate and collaborate with the local elected officials to understand what the needs and the priorities are, and then do your very best in Harrisburg to deliver on whatever those priorities may be. I think in a broader perspective, we've got to look at Pennsylvania and we've got to understand that we are not an attractive place for employers to want to locate and grow. I think we've got to look at a complete overhaul of our employer tax structure. We are not competitive among our neighboring states. Our regulatory reform is a must. Our lawsuit abuse reform is also a must. And I think those are broad policy initiatives that need to be pursued in Harrisburg to promote overall economic development.
Ron, if I could respond quickly. Actually, I think that we are stronger as a business environment than you might have characterized. We've been ranked in terms of business-friendly states. Actually, Pennsylvania is number 26 compared with New York, New Jersey, Ohio, and Maryland, which are all in the low 40s. And it also has to do with the corporate tax rate that we've got. Back in the 1970s, it was actually a 4.9% share of GDP, and I'm sorry, my numbers are wrong here. It was 28% of our general fund back in the 1970s. It's down to 15% today. We've had significant tax cuts already, and my understanding is we're proposing to go from 9.99% to 6.49% So I'm not sure that we're not already an attractive business environment in terms of taxes. There may be other reasons.
Well,
like
I would tell you
broadband.
the CNI tax, the 9.99, is the highest CNI tax in the country. So it's certainly not attractive.
How would you proceed to fairly address the unfunded liability in the state pension systems and provide for the long-term solvency of these programs?
Well, at this point, we got to pay the bill. We just had our revenue numbers come in through the month of April. We're at an $828 million surplus ahead of estimate 10 months through the fiscal year. I think a top priority of that should be to invest those dollars into the pension fund ahead of schedule, ahead of our payments. These payments are choking our school districts, they're choking our state government, they're unsustainable. We enacted 2 rounds of reforms in 2010 and 2017. Those reforms had an impact. They were not nearly as robust as they needed to be. And so I think we have an opportunity in this upcoming budget to help pay the bill, and that's the first step we should take.
Okay. I think that the problem is that I don't believe that the state should be in the business of pensions. I think that what we should be doing instead is investing that money in the market, quite honestly. I mean, I'm a public employee. I work for the state system of higher education, and I make regular contributions. My employer does as well, but it doesn't go into a state pension. It goes into TIAA-CREF, and it's in the market, and actually, I've done well with it. And I think that that's more of an option for everyone. I don't think the state itself should be in the business of holding pensions and making those payments.
Okay. I'm not a hunter. I've never owned a gun. But most of Butler County believes in hunting. There's been a lot in the news lately, everything from changing deer season to, of course, there's always talk of changing gun laws. All right, where do you stand on those issues?
Happy to talk about that. First of all, I want to make note of the fact that there have been some Democrats who have introduced into the House a proposal to put a $10 gun fee for registration for gun owners, $10 for every gun that you own, annual fee. And actually, I was quoted by Representative Pyle, frankly, at a gun bash recently, as saying that I was in support of that. It's not true. I'm not. I don't support it at all. I come from a family, I don't own a gun personally, but I come from a family that is rural. My family's hunted. I've got venison in my freezer. I know how to cook it. I was in the rifle club when I was in high school and a very good shot. My family members and good friends all now are hunters as well. I respect the Second Amendment, and more than that, I respect our culture and our way of life. So I don't have any problems with that whatsoever. I will say, though, that as a mom and as a grandmother, I am gripped with pain every single time I see a mass murder take place in our schools, in theaters, in our churches and synagogues. It horrifies me. And I even had the experience once of going through it. My daughter at Indiana High School, she was in school at the time when a potential shooter, a person they thought was a shooter, was trying to get into the building. It ended up being a man who was mentally ill, and he had a BB gun. But the police came, there was a news helicopter overhead, it went on for a while, and ultimately the man was shot. I had terror in my heart when that happened. And so I believe we have a problem that we have failed to resolve in this country, and I don't think it has to be either or. Either we have nothing whatsoever, or we take away the rights of respectable gun owners. I think that the problem is we have not had leadership in crafting another path. I think the path is to bring together collaboratively people who are gun owners and clergy and school administrators and collectors and veterans and police enforcement to put their heads together and put together policies and guidelines that will actually solve this problem. I believe that the people, sensible people in Pennsylvania can do that.
Thank you.
If I'm elected state senator, and I take an oath of office, that oath is to uphold the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of this Commonwealth. And the Second Amendment makes it very clear that we have the right to keep and bear arms, and I will support that right. A firearm is an inanimate object unless somebody uses it. I think the issues that we have with gun violence are very deep and very broad. I look at my own home with my boys who are 10 and 8, and candidly, I look at some of the stuff that they see on TV, the movies, the video games, the way that we have glorified violence, and I think that that is a huge issue that we are turning our head on and we're refusing to talk about. And I also think we have to have a more serious discussion about identifying our mental health situations, our mental health laws, and addressing them appropriately.
If I could, one additional comment. I've been on the board of directors for the Community Guidance Center over in Indiana County, which is a 5-county organization serving mental health needs, a community guidance center. And I absolutely welcome additional money. We've been struggling for a long time with lack of funding, so that's a good thing.
Thank you very much. We've reached the point of the proceedings where we're going to ask for closing statements. So Joe actually opened this evening, so I will ask for your closing statement first, Dr.
Okay,
Butler.
thank you. Back in 1987, I think it was, Ronald Reagan, as he was campaigning for his second term of office, he posed the question, are you better off now than you were 4 years ago? I found that persuasive to me at the time, and while I was registered independent, I voted for Reagan because I was better off then than I had been 4 years before. We've had leadership for the last 20 years, 18 years in District 41, and it's produced certain outcomes. I encourage you to look at the outcomes of this district over the last 18 years and compare where you were 18 years ago to where you are today, and ask yourself if you're better off. If you are, then great. But if you're like a lot of Pennsylvanians and you're seeing a lower wage overall, if you're one of the 1/3 of people that live in rural areas that earn less than $35,000 a year, if you are struggling to keep the lights on, if you are struggling to pay for insulin, if you have to if you're a student and you have to drive 20 miles to access broadband internet, I encourage you to think about whether it might be time for some fresh ideas and a change.
Joe?
Thank you. Thank you again. Thank you, Dr. Bozer, for your participation in this evening's debate. It was an honor to be here to have an open discussion about the issues that face not only the 41st District, but our entire Commonwealth. I would be honored to serve as your state senator. I have a genuine passion for our communities. I understand our challenges. I understand our opportunities. But most importantly, I'm optimistic for our future. I really am. I think we have potential. I think we have opportunities. And I want to be an optimistic voice for this district, not only in Harrisburg, but throughout the region. So I thank you for your time. I'm asking for your vote, and I hope to have earned your vote. Thank you.
Thank you again for being here this evening. I think we have an excellent slate of candidates to choose from, and I certainly hope that whoever the winner may be will not be a stranger to our part of your Senate district, and that we will see you frequently down here in Butler. All right?
Thanks,
Thank you.
Ron. Thank you.
Unified Voice from Armstrong Business Solutions is the last phone system you'll ever need. Choose from multiple high-definition phones and over 50 features, including video chat, conferencing, and virtual room collaboration. Unified Voice is cloud-based. New capabilities are continually added through Armstrong's high-quality, reliable network. Plus, it's affordable. Pay for only what you need with predictable monthly expenses and no surprises. Focus on your business, not your phone system. Unified Voice from Armstrong Business Solutions. Your business is our business.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to I'm not going to call it a debate, the discussion between the candidates for the Court of Common Pleas judge's position that is available because our dear friend Marilyn Horan was promoted to the federal bench. We're so proud of her, and that makes this opportunity available for another person to serve. And we have 4 very viable candidates here this evening that we're looking very much forward to learning more about. My name is Ron Vodenecker, and I'm the publisher of the Butler Eagle. I'm one of the hosts for this evening. It is my pleasure to serve as moderator. I'd like to thank Armstrong, who is videotaping this evening for professional publication of this. I would ask that no one videotape otherwise so as not to disrupt their videotaping of the event. If you choose to do so, you will be asked to please turn your video cameras off. So please respect that request. I'd also like to thank the Butler radio station, who is broadcasting live right now, so that we're able to reach as many people as possible through our newspaper, through Armstrong and the radio. And I certainly want to give a big thank you to Stan at the Chamber of Commerce. He helped put all of this together and serves as the guiding force for such things. And finally, President Nick Newpower and the BC3. It's an amazing facility, a wonderful place to have this type of event, and of course they are the top community college in the country. So the way we're going to do this evening is each of the candidates is going to be giving a 2-minute introduction of themselves, and then we will pose questions that they will again be given 2 minutes for the candidate to answer, and then each of the other candidates will have 1 minute to comment on what they had to say. So I would ask Jennifer to introduce yourself, and we'll proceed.
Thank you very much, Ron. I appreciate the opportunity to be here tonight. Thank you to the Butler Eagle, to the Chamber of Commerce, to BC3, to Butler Radio, and to Armstrong, and of course to all of you that attended and all of you that will be watching. I really appreciate this opportunity to run for judge of Butler County. I'm really proud. You know, really, what about me, I say there's 3 things that I think really is why I'm running for judge. One is I'm a candidate for change. You know, I'm a candidate that wants to reform the court, if you will, in the sense that I think we can do better. I think we need to be more efficient. I think we need to make certain that we do not have favoritism in our courtroom. And I think that any appointments that we have, we need to be certain that those appointments don't create conflicts of interest. And we need to be certain that those appointments do not create a cost to taxpayers that they're already paying, because they already are paying taxes for our courts to be there to serve. Secondly, I'm a hard worker. I worked full-time downtown Butler while I went to law school. So I traveled back and forth from downtown Butler and then eventually Cranberry. While attending Duquesne University School of Law and working full-time, I still graduated in the top 20 in my class. Third, I'm not looking to be a judge as a bookend to my career. I'm not looking for a pension. I'm not looking for health insurance. What I'm looking to do is to give back. I have a commitment to this county because, as many of you now know from listening to my radio ad, thank you, by the way, Butler Radio, for that, I was adopted through these courts. I would not be here today without the help of Butler County and the great workers that we had at that time. I want to give back, and I want to make sure that everybody else has the opportunity that I had. So I'm really excited to give back. Thank you to Butler County Children and Youth. Joe McCloskey is here today. To my parents, it's a great honor to be here. I'm looking forward to serve, and I appreciate the opportunity to speak tonight and hopefully to gain your support and your vote on May 21st. Thank you.
Matt, pull the mic over.
Mr. Butler, thank you. And again, similar shout outs to the Butler Community College. Butler Eagle, Butler radio station, for having us here tonight. A little bit about myself. I'm 57 years old. I'm married 29 years, coming up in November. My wife, Marcia Paraska, is a lifelong resident of Butler. We have 2 children. My son, Zachary, is getting ready to graduate from Grove City College. My daughter is in the 8th grade at the Butler Intermediate. We attend Community Alliance Church here in Butler, and I will tell you my political background, if you will, is I'm a very conservative individual, pro-life, pro-Second Amendment. In terms of my experience, I have been practicing in the area of family law for the better part of almost 30 years. During that time, I've appeared before over 110 judges throughout the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. I've had over 4,000 trials and hearings. And with that experience, what I have seen is what works and what doesn't work in the court setting. What I'd like to do is, with this opportunity to go into family court, is take that experience and provide an opportunity to help the families of Butler. It is not a secret that we have a crisis going on in Butler. We have a drug epidemic that is really hurting the core of the family unit. And I believe that with my experience, my conservative values, I'll be able to take those experiences to help families in their times of crisis. I appreciate that.
You're welcome. Nicole.
Thank you. Hi, everybody. My name is Nicole Turner. I'll just kind of summarize a little bit about me. I grew up in Washington County, but I do have family here. So when I went to undergrad, I went to Ohio State, and then I stayed in Columbus and went to Capital University Law School. While I was there, I was able to get a plethora of experiences in both federal and state courts, as well as a lot of my internships involved with the National Adoption Center and the family clinic at our law school. I decided to move closer to home and be around family, and I began clerking for one of our family judges here for about a year and a half. Thereafter, I started with a small firm in Valencia, and we primarily practiced real estate work and some civil litigation, and I brought a family dynamic to that. I brought juvenile court or juvenile law and family law into that aspect. So after that, in 2017, I was approached by my predecessor and asked if I would be interested in purchasing the firm. So in 2017, I was able to buy out my predecessor, and he's since retired, so I'm operating that as a solo practice, again in Middlesex Township down in Valencia. And I primarily focus on the family and juvenile work, but I still operate a general practice. I live in Adams Township. I'm up in Adams Ridge, and I live there with my boyfriend and my wonderful pets, Spot and Josie. So in my spare time, I like to play soccer, do some artwork, that sort of thing. But I think we'll get into more of the issues hereafter. So that's just me in a nutshell. Thanks for having us, and thanks for listening.
Thank you, Nicole. Good evening. I'm Attorney Wink Robinson, and I am running for judge. I do not have an agenda, nor do I have any axe to grind. Axe to grind with the way things are right now. My wife and I have resided in Butler Township for 30 years. That has never been an issue in this election. I am, and I don't think anyone, most of you probably know this, but we all cross file. I believe 3 of us do. Democrat, you can vote for me. Republican, you can vote for me. And that's very important because that goes to the nature of my independence. I don't have any connections here. There is no reason why I'm running for judge other than to serve the people of Butler County. I'm doing this based upon my experience, based upon my integrity, based upon my reputation, based upon my knowledge of the law, based upon my ability to be patient, based upon my notions of fairness. So I am what I am because of my 30 years of legal experience. One thing that I'm very proud of, and I think affects my ability to be a good judge, is that I have practiced over the course of 30 years before 11 of our common pleas court judges, and that is definitely more than any of the other candidates. From those judges, I have picked up some very good qualities. From some of those judges, or all of them, there may be some things that I would do differently. But I can build on my experience as an attorney, utilizing what I've learned in the courtroom by how the judges act and how they actually control their courtroom. Thank you. I appreciate the time, and again, to the hosts and the sponsors for tonight's event. Thank you very much.
Okay, I'm ready to start questions then, and I will make this statement. I had been advised and asked to be careful of my questions, that I could not ask any of you to put out a specific position that could actually jeopardize candidacy as if you state that you have a set position already. So if I were to do that, refuse my question, stop me. I wouldn't mean, that is not what I would mean to be doing. Okay, so I ask a number of people, what do you want in a judge? What do you think is important in a judge? And the first thing I heard out of a friend of mine was, I want somebody that is going to contemplate. I like that word. They're going to contemplate before they make a decision. They're not going to be predisposed and so on. So, Jennifer, how do you position yourself? Are you a person who truly contemplates a scenario before you make a decision?
Thank you for that question. I think it's important to always contemplate and consider all the evidence before rendering a decision. I think it's important to make certain that you're always tough, but you're fair. I know when my mother, and I don't have my glasses on so I can't see her out there, when I told her I was running for judge, she paused and she said, you know, I think you're going to miss your practice, but I know that this is your passion. And she said, I think you're going to do a really good job. And I said, why is that? And she said, because you're tough, but you're always fair. And I think that that reflects adequate contemplation, adequate consideration. I think when you do contemplate and you do consider all the facts and apply the law in a case, though, that you need to do it in an efficient manner. I think sometimes what happens in our courts, decisions continue to lag on. And I'm not going to do that. I feel with my 17 years of building a practice from scratch that I've learned how to be efficient in my time. Also, prior to having 17 years as a lawyer in private practice, I worked 8 years at Nationwide Insurance where I handled thousands of civil cases. If we didn't handle our cases fairly, we could get sued for bad faith. So I think that in my almost 30 years of working in legal claims in the legal industry, that it's very important to always contemplate and consider all the facts, but to do so in a tough and fair manner, not to employ any favoritism or nepotism. Everybody in my courtroom is going to get a fair shake. I don't care who you are. I don't care if you supported me or you didn't support me. You will get a fair shake. Your name will not matter in my courtroom, and that is important. So I'm really excited to continue my efforts of trying to do my very best and do it in a different setting, this time instead of for my clients, but for all of you in the community and Butler County and anybody who comes to the Butler County courts.
Okay, thank you. Matt, would you like to reply?
I would, thank you.
Turn the mic a little bit.
I hear the term contemplation, and that is one word that certainly is a key component to a judge. I think within the context of that word, though, there are other subdivisions, and such as legal ability, experience, patience, common sense. Those are all components that make up the qualities of a good judge. The idea that a judge is simply going to contemplate sort of presupposes that he's not doing, or she, other important factors. The critical issue here is this. Look, people are coming into our courts. It is not a comfortable place. They come in with all different types of emotions. It is incumbent upon the judge, okay, to listen carefully to what these people are bringing. This is their only opportunity to have their disputes resolved fairly. And I think if the court applies some common sense, using experience, my experience has been in the family court section all but 30 years, and being in front of what I said earlier, 110 judges, we've learned, as Mr. Robinson has, the nuances of what they do, what they're looking for, what works and what doesn't work. And so at the end of the day, I think the judge's role is to this larger gambit of listening to people, applying the law fairly, okay, appropriately, and making sure that the judge is not making up the law as he or she sees fit, but in applying the law as it's written. And that's what my goal is, that's what my intent is, and frankly, for the better part of my practice, that's really what our obligations as lawyers are. we're obligated to notify the court in terms of what the law is.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Nicole, would you like to comment?
Yes, thank you.
I didn't see that.
In addition to contemplation, I think it's important for a judge to have temperament, strong work ethics, and be an ethical attorney, an ethical person, and when they're on the bench, they need to be ethical as well. I believe that I contemplate every single decision in my life, including running for judge, including, buying my practice, and in all aspects of representing my clients. So contemplation is a very important aspect of being a judge, but I think there's a lot of other characteristics that really need to be present as well. And I have built a very strong reputation for those qualities throughout my career and my personal life. It is known in the communities and with my colleagues and friends that I have a strong work ethic, that I am an ethical person, and that I have that judicial temperament. I think that would translate very well to the bench. And, experience, I might not have had as many years of experience as these fellow candidates up here. However, my experience has been very good. I have had a very wide range of experiences. I have learned a lot, and I am always looking for other opportunities to learn and explore and grow. And I think contemplation is a very large part of that because you don't want to jump into anything hastily, right? You need to really take it and try to take all of the facts, all of the information you have, and make a decision that way. And that's absolutely something that I would do as a judge. Thank you.
Link?
Mr. Vodnecker, the word contemplation kind of scares me as an attorney because contemplation implies pausing and thinking. Now, contemplation by a judge perhaps is more appropriate when the matter's not being heard, when in chambers, when deciding slowly, carefully, methodically how to rule on a certain matter. So contemplation is very important, not while the action's going on. I think what's important in a courtroom is patience, the ability to listen, the ability to have respect for the attorneys, for the parties involved, for the members of the jury, for the tip staffs, for everyone in that courtroom. Those are fundamental traits that I was raised with, and those are fundamental traits that I would use and apply in the courtroom. Yes, I would contemplate, but I don't know that I would want to waste a lot of time in the courtroom contemplating, and I hope everyone understands where I'm coming from on that. The reasoning ability of a judge involves contemplation, and that should be done. You don't have time when you're ruling on an evidentiary issue to contemplate. You have to make a decision. So contemplation, yes, it's appropriate, but it's more appropriate off camera, so to speak.
Okay, thank you. Stan Kuziosko, who runs the Chamber of Commerce, the word he chose that he thought was most important was that he hoped that a new judge would remember that they are a servant of the people, and the word service comes to play. So tell us about your community service, Matt.
Thank you. Well, here's the deal. Running my own practice, I've been a solo practitioner since 1992, first in my hometown of Reading, Pennsylvania, and then when my wife and I moved here to Butler in '98, that in and of itself is hard work. But in terms of service, what I have done and what I have seen is I take my skills as an attorney, and I have done a lot of pro bono, mostly in the area of custody and family law. And the reason for that is one of the things that I have noticed over the years is access to our system. It's very difficult. There are a lot of citizens here in the county of Butler who just do not have the financial means and ability to pay and hire for a lawyer. Going into the custody arena, just for instance, the filing fee alone, just to gain access to your child in the event that a mom and father don't have the ability to work things out, over $400. These are costs that a lot of people don't have. So what I have done is, in my practice, take my experience, family law, and using that towards pro bono, helping people who don't have the financial means to seek an opportunity to be with their children and or deal with other divorce-related issues. Thank you.
Nicole?
I was recently at an event and a friend of mine said, service is not just a word, it's a way of life. It is what I do. It's who I am. I am the pro bono solicitor for the Butler Humane Society. I'm co-chair for the Wills for Heroes program, which is a free estate planning program here in Butler County that we put on for our military veterans and first responders. And we actually partner with BC3 to allow us to put that on. I am a mentor for the students at Knock High School for their Youth in Government program. I'm secretary of the Arts Center in Butler. I do a lot of pro bono work with our credit conciliation program here in Butler, which was started by Judge Horan. And it's a foreclosure program that when people are facing foreclosures, it puts a stay on that action and allows pro bono attorneys like myself to work with the lenders to help these people stay in their homes and figure out an alternative way to pay those bills that they need to, again, be able to stay in their homes. I'm also on the oversight committee for the Family Engagement Initiative, and that's a statewide initiative that is head up by Justice Max Baer, one of our Pennsylvania Supreme Court justices, to help better the child welfare system. I do a lot of work with our Children and Youth Services, as well as with the delinquency and the dependency systems there. So for those of you who don't know it, those are $60 an hour. It's way less than my normal rate. So I do a lot of work for our communities, and I think, like it was stated, it is a service-oriented position, and that person who's in that position needs to understand that.
Okay, thank you.
It's ironic that that question came up now. I am very proud to say that I serve on the prestigious Vogley Scholarship Committee at Butler High School, which, if you're unfamiliar with it, I'll give you a quick overview. It awards a full 4-year, full-time, everything paid scholarship to a student at Butler High School. My point being is that this morning and this afternoon, we interviewed 22 excellent students. And to me, I look forward to this every year because you know what? Our school district is doing something right, not only with the 22 students we interviewed today, but the 41 whose resumes we did last year. I'm extremely proud of that. Mr. Vogley is since deceased, of course, but he was like a grandfather to me. So I know him, and now I'm able to apply the generosity that he has given to the Butler Area School District. Years ago, even before Suzanne and I had our 3 children, we raised money and constructed by hand the Kids Zone playground that is still standing at Alameda Park. And that sounds fine and dandy, but raising the money was the hard part. Now, I believe a local organization has expanded on that, but the original guts and bones of the Kids Zone playground is still there. When I was younger, I was heavily involved in athletics. So most of my community service has been through volunteering with youth athletics, again, even before we had children, ranging from ice hockey, Little League Baseball, soccer. And it's not just because my son or our daughter was playing on the team. I've coached teams where none of our kids were on the team.
Wrap it up, Wayne.
Thank you.
Thank you. Right. I don't know if you guys can see, I can't see them down there, but I have to kind of guess when time's up, but they're trying to wave placards at us if we go over. Okay, Nicole, you get first shot at this question.
I'm sorry, Ron,
Excuse me.
Oh, I'm sorry, Jennifer.
That's okay.
Excuse me. I forgot I needed to wrap around. Okay, go ahead.
Last but not least, thank you, and sorry to interrupt,
Sure.
but I wanted
No,
to make
please.
certain that I did answer the question. We didn't have any protests later, right? But I believe in service, and actually that is why I'm doing this. You know, I want to give back. I proudly served as the mock court coordinator for almost a decade for Butler County, our bar association. At the time that I started serving, Butler High School, as a matter of fact, wasn't even in the mock court program, and now I understand that they're thriving. Not only did I serve as our local community organizer for the bar association, I advanced to be the regional director, and I was a state judge. Also in the Young Lawyers Division, and I'm not in the Young Lawyers Division anymore, unfortunately I'm over 40, but I served as treasurer for the PBA for the state. I also serve as Zone 10 delegate for the Pennsylvania Bar Association, so I've been very active in the Bar Association. I've also been active in the community through Junior Miss. I believe it's almost 20 years I served as either board advisor or legal advisor for Butler County's Junior Miss and Distinguished Young Woman. I've judged many programs and scholastic activities throughout not just Butler County, but through the state. Most recently, I've been involved as a founding member, founder participant, I probably should say better, of the Power of 100 Women. It's a really great organization that a local wonderful lady, Jackie, started, and really what her goal is to have 100 women donate $100 to worthy causes. We just met for our second time, and BC3, the Sarah Foundation, won that. I also always try to help my family and community whenever it's needed. My husband, he's a proud coach of the Super Bowl champs of the 8- and 9-year-olds in football, and we try to help out anytime we can, and that's really been installed in me from my family because I've watched my grandfather as a fire chief in Butler Township, and I watched my father and my mother and my grandmother in the auxiliary, and so giving back is important, and I'm really excited to serve in this role.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I should have given more time for that question. All of you could have went on much longer, I realize. Okay, Nicole. One of the criticisms that I hear frequently about our Butler County court system is that it is too slow. Is it? And if so, why? And what can we do about it?
Yes, thank you. You know, in my dealings with being a clerk, I've seen things on both sides of the bench, right? So I've seen what it's like to hear the cases, parse out those facts, apply the laws, and render those decisions. I was an integral part of that. On the flip side, I've also been a litigator with my clients, and waiting on court orders sometimes is challenging because our clients are constantly calling us and asking us, hey, did you get a decision? What's going on with my case? So I do think that occasionally there's a lag. I understand the efficiency aspect of that and how to implement that, and there certainly would be efficiency in my courtroom. I also think that currently there's a high volume of cases. I think implementing some alternative programs for, you know, maybe mediating some cases that don't necessarily need to go before the judge and have that time, and we could spend our time as judges hearing cases that really need to be brought before the judge, and, you know, implementing some kind of alternative dispute resolution, I think would help really cut down on that and allow the judges to be able to be more efficient. So it is an extremely important thing for judges to be efficient and to be able to control that aspect of their courtroom, and I would make sure that I did.
Thank you. Link?
Thank you, Nicole. It's important to understand that there are basically 4 divisions in the Butler County Court of Common Pleas: the criminal division, the civil division, the family division, and the orphans court division. Now, the easy answer right now for the criminal division is that there are so many crimes being committed and people being arrested that it's very difficult to move things quickly, although the Constitution protects those that are arrested and incarcerated. Civil division there's rules of the game called discovery that take a long time to implement. It's each lawyer's responsibility to follow those rules of civil procedure in very general. So built into the system is a non-expeditious rules of the game, so to speak. Those also apply to criminal law, criminal division, and also to the family division. Family division is a little bit more unique. You need to have quick resolutions, but you don't want to make a quick resolution simply to make a quick resolution to clean it off your desk to make you feel happy and maybe make the lawyers feel happy. You have to be careful in the family division that, for example, in a custody case that read carefully any expert reports. There's financial documents involved in the family division more so than in any other division. So yes, things do take time to decide, but I think Butler County citizens would want a decision that has been well thought out, despite the fact that it may have taken longer. Of course you want to know what the result's going to be, but I think it's important that a judge not sit on it, I don't mean that at all, but take some time and give a good, well-reasoned opinion. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. And as I stated earlier, I'm a candidate.
Turn the mic, Jim.
Normally, people don't have a hard time hearing me. As I stated earlier, I'm a candidate for change. I believe that efficiency is an issue in our courtrooms, in particular in Butler County. As someone who started a business from scratch, I did not come from a family of attorneys. I came from a family of hard workers. My dad was a truck driver, and I learned really from watching my family how important it was to be resourceful, to be efficient, and to respect people's time and respect people's property. So I think it's really important, and what I want to do as a judge, in particular is family court, because we know at this point in time that's where the judge is going, so I'll limit my time to that, is motions court needs to have an opportunity to have resolution. I don't think that someone should go to motions court just to get a hearing date or just to delay the ball, because what happens, and I know this, when a family doesn't get resolution, a family is in pain. And we need to make certain that our families, that our children, that they have a home to go to, that they have a home that is peaceful. The cost is just too great, both financially and emotionally, when we cause delays, in particular in family court. And I'm going to be efficient, and I know how to be efficient because I've done it for 17 years. I've had over 3,000 cases go through my office where either I've handled it or other lawyers that I've supervised. And I'm going to make certain that the Butler County citizens and everybody who goes to our court, that they get a judge that is going to move the case in an efficient manner, because we work for the community. There are too many continuances, there are too many delays, and there are too many times that a judge changes the game and sends it off to another person. No, that's our job.
Thank you.
That's what we're here to do, and that's what I'm going to do.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Matt,
Thank you. In my experience,
the mic, please, Matt.
in my experience, and I'm going to limit it to family court, there is no question that there are delays. The delays are any number of sources. We can start with attorneys, either their inability or unwillingness to work and cooperate with others in attempting to reach a resolution for a particular family. We can talk about what Ms. Van Annensdale said about continuances, the court taking a matter and referring it to a different section in the family court division. I'm reminded when I first started my practice in Reading, a couple of my friends, Jimmy Bucci, Johnny Bacavella, and Johnny DiGambardino, made the comment, Matt, you're the best lawyer there are. And in essence, what they were saying was, Matt, it's not that you're the best. Even if your clients think you're wonderful, you're not part of your client's life. You need to get them in and out of your office within 6 months. They have their own lives to live. And I think my role as a family law judge would be to keep that in mind. What can we do to implement a procedure that is going to expedite a resolution for the benefit of the family? The problems with delays are just not the litigants. The problems with delays are with employers. I mean, obviously, if somebody is working and they continually have to take off, have things rescheduled, it impacts employers in our community. That has a negative impact. One of the things that I would like to implement, I've been talking about this ever since we moved to Butler some 25 years ago, having a monthly bench bar meeting between the lawyers and the judge. Having a dialogue in terms of getting on the same page. What is going to work? What are the expectations of lawyers in terms of their ability to represent their clients adequately? And what is the role of the judge in terms of giving guidance in terms of what the judge's perceptions are on particular issues? And that's one thing I'd like to implement. My apologies for the over.
Very good. Thank you. Okay, Wink, you may have the most difficult time with this question because you've appeared before with so many judges. But I'd like you to tell us about one person in the profession. It doesn't even have to be a local judge, but somebody that has impressed you, that has helped mold you in the direction of what you're wanting to now become, a very positive influence in the legal profession that you can cite for us, and why?
Of course, the most obvious is my late father, who I was fortunate to practice with at law firm of Henninger & Robinson from 1988 until his passing in 2007. What I learned from him is invaluable. It's honesty, it's fairness, it's respect towards everyone. If you treat others with respect, they will treat you with respect too, 99% of the time. Now, one thing I really remember was from the late Floyd Rauschenberger, probably within my first year of practicing law. We were in chambers, and he gave me the best advice that a judge could give a young lawyer. Prepare, prepare, prepare. A lawyer has to be prepared because typically the judge needs to be informed what the lawyer's client wants or doesn't want. So I've taken that with me for 30 years, and if I'm elected judge, I would expect the attorneys to be prepared. I will be prepared. They should be prepared. One more positive influence would be Judge Marilyn Horan, who is now in the federal bench in Western District Court in Pittsburgh. Judge Horan was prepared. If you went in for a pretrial conference, or frankly any matter, you had better be prepared. If I'm elected judge, I would like to have that same respect that Judge Horan had from other lawyers. Please be prepared. It makes the system work a lot better. Thank you.
Thank you. Jennifer.
Thank you. You know, there are a lot of judges. Thank you. There are a lot of judges that I've really grown to admire throughout my last 18 years, and even 8 years when I was at Nationwide Insurance, I had the great opportunity to travel throughout the whole entire state to see what I thought were really strong leadership skills of many that serve in our fiduciary, in our judiciary. You know, really, one judge that comes to mind is Judge Ziegler. He was our chief judge in federal court in Pittsburgh. He also was an Allegheny County judge. And I had the distinct pleasure of having a very large case go before him. And, you know, really what I liked about him is that, you know, he brought the best out in the fact that he respected when you were prepared. He respected your advocacy. He respected your time. And he made certain that he made decisions and that he guided you and really wanted to see a resolution for the parties. In this particular case, he was our mediator. And what I really respected is that he kept on pushing. And that's what I want to do as a judge. I want to push the clients. In this regard, it will be the attorneys to come to solutions, you know, to look at the big picture so we can advance cases forward for the betterment of all that are involved. You know, I think it's very important to be fair. It's very important to be prompt. I also think it's important that if you reflect and you make a mistake, that you own it. You know, I had a distinct pleasure of having a case in Indiana County with a prior judge, Judge Hannah. She's no longer a judge, she's since retired. But, you know, I had a case where I had it on appeal, and we were the appellate counsel, and we won on the appeal, and it was remanded back to the judge, and she saw the issues that the Superior Court agreed with in our position, and she understood it, and she was able to be professional, not to be personal because we went against her ruling, but to understand it, to move forward, and to come forward with a good decision that was based on the law and not on personalities or who you are. And that's really what I strive to be a judge for all people. Thank you.
Okay. Matt, and take your time. Take your time.
And as I understand the question is what influence from a legal perspective. And I will say that I can't necessarily say that I've had an influence from the legal profession. What influences are in my life starts with my faith, number one. Number two, my mother and father. My father is passed, but when you have a little Italian mother, she has a strong sense of right and wrong. And there was that sense growing up. My dad provided me a work ethic second to none. Came from nothing, lived the great American dream of rags to riches. Another huge influence, if not the most important influence, is my wife, Marcia. We're married 29 years. She keeps me grounded. And those are valuable assets when you get up in the morning and get ready to go to work, and the work is involving helping other people. And finally, my in-laws, Dave and Patty Paraska. What an influence they've been on, allowing me to marry their daughter, providing me, again, a faith-based orientation of right and wrong, and keeping me grounded in terms of when I go to work, recognizing that my role is to help people in need. taking their issues and trying to make their lives better. And so that's how I would categorize that answer, if I could, in terms of the influence that has influenced my life.
Very good. Thank you. Nicole?
Okay, I think two people come to mind for me. The first is my uncle, Dan Lynch. He has a local law firm in Cranberry, and I remember being a little girl just talking to him about practicing law and what he does and what now I've seen him grow. And when I was a senior in high school, I interned with him for my senior project. And now that I am a practicing attorney, I reach out to him anytime I have questions about how to run my business. He's a brilliant businessman. Anytime that I have questions regarding the law or just how to have that work-life balance, he's somebody that I can really lean into and trust and ask those questions. And he's been an extreme influence over me in my practice. And I think the second person, and we kind of already mentioned her, but Judge Marilyn Horan, she left some huge shoes for us to fill. She is the epitome of what a judge should be, and I can only hope that I can imitate her in that position. She is a huge role model of mine. I have a sticky note on my mirror that I look at every day and when I'm getting ready, and it's WWJHD, what would Judge Horan do? So it reminds me just to kind of stay classy, be positive, be patient, be courteous, and that's exactly who she was and what she did on the bench. So I think those are the two people that are large influences on me, my profession, and who I am and who I've become.
Very good. Okay, we've reached the part of the program where we're going to ask you for your final comments. I would like you to try to include, if you would, and I'm going to be gracious on the time. We're not going to shut anybody's mic off. I'd like you to address if there's any areas of the Common Pleas Court that you feel more strongly about serving in. It was interesting for me to learn. I got lots of phone calls from attorneys and judges who wanted me to know some rules and regulations and so on. And I did not know, I always thought there was somebody appointed to family court. And it was pointed out to me that no, they have to be able to serve in all capacities, because if 3 of the judges have to recuse themselves and it gets down to, gee, there's only 1 left, they have to hear a criminal case, whatever it might be, before anybody can be brought in. Everybody would have to have been excused first. So I'd like to know how you feel about that. Now, we started to my right with opening statements, so we're going to start to the left with closing statements. So, Wink, if you would, please.
Thank you, Mr. Bodenecker. And again, thanks to our hosts and our sponsors tonight. That's a really good question. The ability to serve in all of the 4 different divisions that I talked about earlier is critical to being a well-rounded judge. In order to be a well-rounded judge, you must have experience in all 4 areas of the law. As I mentioned earlier, you must know the rules of the game, the rules of civil procedure. You must know the rules of evidence. In my 30 years of practicing law, I have practiced in all areas, all divisions of the Butler County court system. I'm a realist. If I'm fortunate enough to be elected for the citizens of Butler County, I would be low judge on the proverbial totem pole. And I don't want to sound as crass as I will go wherever they put me, because I have too much respect for the court system in that regard. I would be a listener initially as the new judge. I would offer my opinion when the time was appropriate. I don't have an agenda. I don't plan in there to disrupt things. What folks need to understand is that judges don't sit in little protective bubbles in their courtrooms. The judicial system works when there's cooperation among all of the judges and collaboration to make the system work better. I think one of my best strengths that I even had before practicing law was the ability to bring people together. Those that disagree may still disagree, but they will realize the other position on the other side. I think that's where I will be a valuable asset if I'm fortunate enough to serve in the Butler County Court of Common Pleas. And I don't know how much time I left, but I'm going to fire out a bunch of things for you. One point I would like to get across also this evening is that my wife and I are self-funding this campaign. It is perfectly legit and legal for judicial candidates to accept contributions, whether it be money or whether it be in kind, the rental of a vagabond center like that. I've never given to a judicial campaign. If I'm fortunate enough to be elected, that will never be an issue, that I made a decision for Mrs. So-and-so because her uncle or her father or someone donated $10, $500, or $1,000. Self-funding a campaign is hard. This is an important seat for Butler Countyans. Judicial elections do not come around every 2, 4, 6, 8, 10 years. It's been 12 years since we had the last one, 17 years before that. The seat on this in the Butler County Court of Common Pleas should not be bought by the candidate who spends the most money. I may not have the biggest or flashiest campaign, I guarantee you that, but I clearly am the most qualified person to be elected in the Court of Common Pleas. Okay. And I want to soften it a little bit here. I do want to thank being self-funded and having what I will call, frankly, a ragtag committee, but it's a damn good one. I would like to really express my appreciation and love to my wife, Suzanne, because without her, I would not be sitting here right now. From December 20th to now, until the election primary, she's been with me, and I will continue to run a positive, factual-based, honest, ethical campaign with integrity, and I respectfully request that you consider voting for me on May 21st, Democrat or Republican. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Nicole, next, please.
I think the start of that question was where you would desire most to serve. And my answer to that is the juvenile system. I'm very, very passionate about helping our youth. I really want to implement a behavioral health court for juveniles. I think that's a demographic that we're really missing. And right now, for those who don't know, we do have 3 specialty courts in Butler. We have a behavioral health court, a veterans court, and a drug and alcohol court. They're wonderful programs, and they focus on the adults in our communities that need those programs. But we don't have anything for our juveniles, and that's where I would like to see the difference being made, and where my efforts and my passion and my experience would be best served. That being said, Wink is right. We could get any case thrown in front of us. We could be placed on the civil bench or the criminal bench, so it is important to have a vast array of experiences, and I certainly have that. I've been in the federal public defender system. I've been in the juvenile public defender system. I've done criminal work. I've done civil litigation. I do estate work. I do real estate, and I do family. So I have a lot of that experience. So no matter what case comes before me, I'm going to be able to handle that. Moreover, every single one of us sitting up here has the same exact degree. I am licensed in 2 states, and we are all practicing family court, right? Not one of us has ever been a judge before. We're all going to need to go through the same trainings and the same learning curve to be able to be on that position. There are trainings that are offered across the state that every single one of us is going to have to do. It's called Judges School. So I ask that you keep that in mind, because not one of us has ever been in this position before. And I'm sure a lot of you, if not everybody out there, has started a position at one point in time where you've had to go through training. So that's not any different sitting up here for this position. In closing, I just want to state that I am running this campaign for the right reasons. I don't have a personal or political agenda. I just want to serve the people of Butler County. That's who I am. That's what I do. That's what motivates and drives me every single day. When candidates are making promises about what they want to do and if they want to serve, those sorts of things, I think it's really important to look at what they've done in the past and what they've continued to do for the community. I am making an investment in you, in our in our county and in our communities, and I'm asking you to do the same thing for me by supporting me and voting for me on May 21st. Thank you very much for having us. This was a wonderful opportunity.
Thanks, Nicole. Matt?
Just to pick up on some comments that Mr. Robinson made, like Mr. Robinson, I too am self-funding. When I say I am self-funding, my wife and I are self-funding. This means that we're paying for everything in terms of advertising and what it takes to get our name out there, get our message out there to people. And the message that I'm trying to convince people is that I have conservative values, and I think those conservative values have served me well in all but 29 years of a marriage, raising my 2 children, attending to issues with my faith and Community Alliance Church, and frankly, the 28, 29 years of practicing law. In terms of where the next judge is going to be going, as a solo practitioner, sometimes it's referred to as a general practitioner, we handle all types of cases. I've been in criminal court, I've been in civil court, I've been before Judge Yeager in terms of dealing with the states and orphans court. My practice, though, primarily is family court. This judge, there's no question, no secret that this judge is slated to go there, and that's where my experience is. In terms of Mr. Robinson saying that he believes that he's the most qualified, I'm sure he thinks that way. But my mother, a little Italian as she is, she would disagree with that, and she's probably going to be watching this on TV. Look, there's a confidence, and certainly Mr. Robinson has the qualifications, as I do. And the qualifications are, all but 30 years of practicing and a history of character and integrity and helping people. I'm trying to take that experience and move it into a situation where, as a judge, I'm going to be able to have a more influential impact on the families of Butler County. Thank you.
Jennifer, take us home.
Thank you, and thank you again for hosting this forum tonight. It's been very fun, and hopefully the voters have been well informed. I am ready, prepared, and qualified to serve in any area of the courthouse. I am the only candidate on stage that is AV rated in general practice by Martindale-Hubbell. Martindale-Hubbell is the largest and longest rating systems of lawyers, and I have the AV rating, which is the highest rating possible, both based on professional standards and on ethics. I have tried cases in every area of the law. As I stated, I built a firm from scratch along with my husband, who later joined after he left State Farm Insurance. We've had many attorneys working with us. We've handled all areas of the law. I'm in and out of every courtroom. I'm really excited because, as Attorney Fisher stated, we do know that this opportunity, at least at this point in time, is family court, and I have a real strong passion to give back because family court gave me my life here in this county. But I am fully prepared and willing to serve in any way that the court directs. In that regard, I've also served in decision-making capacities before. I've served as an arbitrator in many cases, to include chairperson of Butler County cases in the civil division. I am truly self-funding my campaign. I don't have elected officials, and I don't have law firms out working for me. I am paying for it along with my husband. I'm sure he's not so happy about all of it. But there is a cost to get a message out, especially when you have a candidate that is going against the good old ways. And that cost is expensive, but we've made that investment, just as we made the investment in our building that we built from scratch in 2003 in Cranberry Township, and just as we did when we bought Al Rosenberg's beautiful building at the Working Man's Store across from the Butler County Courthouse. We are invested in this community, and I'm truly funded because I think it's important, because I am working for the people. I am working for both Republicans, both Democrats, independents, whoever you are. You will have a fair day in my courtroom. I am for all people. That is so important. And I think that it's important for me, with being funded, self-funded, that everybody knows that I put my money where my mouth is, and that I'm here to serve you all in a fair manner. And I believe I'm the most qualified. I've worked from scratch. I didn't have a law firm to inherit. I built it. I built it, and we did a good job. I'm the only candidate here that's AV rated. I'm the only candidate here, I think, that has the passion to do what's right for everybody. I'm not doing this as a bookend of my career. I'm 48 years old. I'm looking to help people and to make this courthouse in Butler County better. And I appreciate your consideration. I appreciate tonight, and hopefully you'll vote for me on May 21st. Thank you very much.
I've had a wonderful evening. I've learned a lot this evening and during each of the 3 sessions. I hope that anyone who was had not made up their mind when they walked in the doors has a better idea now of who they're going to be voting for in a couple weeks. Very important decision we're going to live with for a long time. So contemplate. And thank you for being here tonight. Thank you to the candidates. Good night.
Are you moving at the speed of business? File transfers, multiple locations, video chat. Companies these days are using more data than ever, and it's got to be fast. With gigabit internet from Armstrong Business Solutions, you can keep up with the pack no matter what size your company is. We can provide your business a reliable connection to our advanced fiber optic network with speeds from 100 megs up to 10 gigs per second. Get your business in the fast lane. Armstrong Business Solutions. Your business is our business.